But to me, it showed the character and determination of what those kids did, or whether it was the culture that we built at York. I mean, it showed everything that you want in a team. So whether you might have cool training and cool equipment and you've got a mad scientist coach and you're doing all this stuff, none of that matters without the character that you build. And to me, that was the coolest story of my career, that it all came together. And it wasn't because I do cool training or I have crazy exercises and I have different practices than everyone else. It was more of a character development thing, something that we had built at York.
Welcome to the Talking Shop podcast, where I'm here to share stories, lessons, and experiences in sports performance and professional development. I'm joined today by Chris Korfist. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Always a good day when I can record a podcast, catch up with friends, hear some awesome stories. So a little bit of quick background about how Chris and I know each other. So it recently dropped on social media, the video of Chris Korfist and 1080 Sprint or 1080 Motion, how he uses his 1080 Sprint. And I might or might not have made that video. So we kind of met through that. I'm from the Chicago area. Chris is from the Chicago area as well. I made one video for TC Boost, where I currently coach. And then I guess I didn't mess it up. So they asked me to make another one. They said, hey, Chris is 45 minutes away. Would you want to make one? I was like, oh, Chris, he's like a big deal. He's really smart. He does really cool stuff. This is, awesome opportunity. And then I really enjoyed the first day going out there. And then your 1080 almost like blew up.
Yeah, it wasn't a good situation. It sounded like a machine gun going off, and they never really told me what was wrong with it. I think we bent the rod.
Yeah, it was going like up and down, up and down.
It was going up and down, up and down. We had to shut it down because I thought it was going to blow up or someone was going to get hurt or something like that. And then I got a new one. They sent me another. They fixed it and sent it back out, and I got new guts. I got the same case, but I got new guts, I think.
So it's looking like the durability of a 1080 Sprint is about 4 years of heavy use.
I think I had it longer than 4. Was it 4? I think it's
4 or
5.
5.
I have 5.
5 years of heavy use.
Beat the hell out of that thing.
Yeah, so we did the script in the first half of the video, and then I went back like 2 weeks later once you got your new and improved 1080. And
you
then
couldn't even hear it.
Oh, it was, and then you got the new nozzle too.
New nozzle.
Yeah, it was awesome. So
like
I really
glass.
I enjoyed working with you, meeting you. I got to pick your brain a little bit also, and now you're nice enough to give me some of your time again and pepper you with more questions. So for those who are not familiar, could you please share a little bit about your background and how you got to now?
I am a high school coach. I guess I'll start basic. I'm a high school teacher. I teach U.S. history. I've coached at multiple high schools, and there's reasons for me leaving all of them. I started out as a strength coach. I was a GA at Northern Illinois for 2 years. And then I was a football strength coach. I got pushed into track, didn't like to lose what was going on or what and this is pre-internet. All the information out there, I wasn't getting results. And so I had nothing to lose. I mean, if you knew the genetic makeup of my high school, you would know that there's no way they should be good in track. We're good at golf, swimming, and tennis. And so I just pushed it. I pushed the envelope and tried new things and did different things. Bounced from there to Downers Grove North for a year, to York High School, where we had a string of success, nationally ranked teams that won all kinds of stuff at state and nationals. Then I went to Montini for a while, and then now I'm at home with Flossmoor. And along that journey, I got involved with different people and different things. I wrote some articles that got some people's attention, and over time I've had the opportunity to work with NFL teams, Major League Baseball teams, NBA teams, professional rugby teams, colleges. I do work. I've written 2 research papers with other people. I'm an advisor at SPRINS, which is the largest sports research facility in the world in Auckland. It's Auckland University of Technology, or AUT, and they have SPRINS, which is an amazing place. and it's just a great place to visit to begin with. But Springs is phenomenal. Uh, and with the magic of the internet and all that, I guess I gained some traction or whatever you call it these days. And uh, to kind of get different ideas out, I started something with Tony Holler called Track Football Consortium, where we try to bring out, or we don't try, we do, we bring out people who have different ideas on training to really push the envelope for what's out there for people who've hit the wall and said, you know what, we keep squatting or we keep doing this or this workout or that workout, and I'm not getting any change. And it's a big coach that says I'm not getting any change. Maybe I need to look at myself and see what's going on rather than just blaming it on my kids and wait for that one kid who comes every 5 to 6 years that can run like the lights are out. And then I also co-founded a Reflexor Performance Reset with Cal Dietz and Jill Holdsworth. So I kind of have you know, a wide background, more so than most high school coaches, I would guess. And I've been lucky in that. And yeah, so here I am.
Slow Guy Speed School.
Slow Guy Speed School. Yeah, I opened a Slow Guy Speed School in 2004. There was, I'd been working with a football coach, a head football coach and athletic director. And when he left, they brought in someone else. And he and I'll be very nice here. He and I just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And there's a lot of stories about that, but I quit coaching football. And then he tried to wreck my track team and told everyone not to run track. And, you know, it was pretty ugly. And so I said, you know what, at that point, I didn't know if anyone would want me to come coach for them, or you have no idea. You've worked at a high school for 12 years and then everyone turns their back on you. Like you're the bad guy. And so I opened up Slow Guy Speed School because I love to train people. I love to get people to run fast. I love to experiment. And so that's why I opened it up. And originally my gym was my garage. In the house that I currently live in, we had a house fire, and I had to build a new house and put the gym in the basement. But originally it was in a garage. And it was kind of interesting in January and February where not working out, me standing there, I had on like down pants and stuff like that because it's an old house, and we did the best we could to insulate it. My wife would kill me because I left the garage door open and tried to use the heat from the house to heat the garage. And she'd come screaming at me and slam the door. But eventually we moved out of the garage. Probably wasn't the way we wanted it to happen. So now we're down in the basement, and everyone likes to come see my basement because I spend money on equipment. You know, my mindset is I can have an answer to my question, which is like, how can we run faster? Or I can have the money in this hand. Which one would I rather have? And it always comes out to be, I need to see if this actually works, and I want data, or I want to see if this can be the next big thing or something like that. And so the money always loses out, which my wife doesn't even bother me anymore about it. She just never asks, never looks. Kind of like my guitar collection too. Never asks, never looks, doesn't bother.
And you get the results. And it's interesting, kind of just like as I've been doing more content creation and stuff, and like I just got a gaming laptop, fun fact, for my video editing. Gaming and video editing and like engineering software is basically all the same. And like a nice mic for my podcast. And it's like you have to kind of put in some money to then consequently like make money. You know, you have to put in some money to get the results. Like people want the results first, and then the money comes in and then you can spend it. But it's kind of like you start kind of taking a few steps back. So kind of just having that mindset of like, I'm going to get those answers, and that's going to help me get the results. And then, you know, it kind of goes that direction.
I mean, my original equipment, which I still have, I just trolled eBay, and I waited for gyms to close, and I'd go grab whatever I could, or have it shipped to me. Sometimes the shipping was more than the equipment, but that's basically how I built my gym. Is I just waited for people to close up shop, and I'd grab it on eBay back when you bought things on eBay. I don't know if anyone buys things on eBay anymore, but Yeah, if I have a four-way hip, I've got a hammer strength deadlift machine that everyone, I can't believe how great this was. It was a limited run thing where there all kinds of ball bearings. It was just a great piece of equipment. So yeah, that's how I built my stuff out.
And it was funny in your driveway, you have all this space, all these lines and dots and wickets and stuff like that.
Yeah, I figured
And
it's my house. I can paint my driveway however I want.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't, no one's going to yell at me.
And well, maybe your wife, but
She doesn't care.
yeah. It was funny because I was like, wow, you have such a long driveway. Like it's perfect for training. Like, was it planned like that? And you were like, oh, well, my old house burned down and then we had to put the new one farther back. I'm like, oh gosh, this is awkward. This was like, 30 minutes in a meeting and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like,
But
of
how would you
course.
know? How would you
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
I had
Yeah.
that issue?
It's just
Uh,
like, of course, of course.
but
So
we survived. We lost some stuff, but you get new stuff.
yeah, yeah. So thriving now. So it's just kind of a funny story. So one main question, and then we'll get into kind of the questions that I sent you. And this is the most training specific we'll get because I don't want this to be a training podcast. And I believe I asked you this when I first met you. So this mad scientist, whatever mindset we want to call it, of you want the data, you want to answer your own questions. Certain piece of equipment you keep, some you get rid of. So like, what is your process of figuring out what to investigate? How long until you make your conclusion, and kind of like, what's this process like of idea, fork over some dough, pitch it or keep it? Kind of just this process of you being a mad scientist.
Well, it's nothing magical. I surf the internet. If I see cool equipment, I go, wow, that looks pretty cool. What can I do with this? Or I go backwards and say, this is what I'm really looking for. This is what I need something to do, and I'll find stuff. Some of the equipment that you see down in the basement, there was a guy used to be down in the Quad Cities. He built stuff for me,
Nice.
but he doesn't do that anymore. He retired, so um, yeah, it's just stuff where there's a hole like. The Run Rocket. I have a Run Rocket and a 1080. They're two different machines, and I use them both a lot. But they just fit two different holes for something that I needed that I couldn't replicate with the equipment that I had in the basement or in the driveway or in the garage or whatever. And part of it is just like you get a gut feeling like, wow, that looks pretty cool. I know I've bought a lot of shit before, but I really got to have that. And a lot of times, not a lot, but maybe a lot, maybe more than half the time, it doesn't survive. And then it goes, oh, you saw the side of my house and all the garbage that's on the side of my
Yeah.
house. Someday someone's going to pick that up. But equipment, or someone will come by and say, hey, if you don't want that piece of equipment anymore, I'll buy it. I used to have reverse hypers. I had all kinds of really cool West Side barbell stuff, and I just didn't use it anymore. And people would come and buy stuff. So it's, I'm just like everyone else. I look at YouTube and I do the same thing like everyone else, but sometimes there's a burning question or burning need for something, and I will find something. And if it's not perfect, I'll make it work. I Jimmy rig a lot of stuff, and well, you've seen, I'm good with PVC pipes.
Yeah. You got the primer, you got the glue, you got
Yeah.
a pipe cutter, and you're set.
I understand pulleys and basic physics to
Yeah.
rig things up and all that. Plus, it helps that I have a guy that I train. He's got a master's degree in rocket engineering. So he's truly a rocket engineer. When people say you're as smart as a rocket engineer, oh, this dude's a rocket engineer. And he helps me Jimmy rig a lot of stuff too. He understands physics and engineering much better than I do.
I like how you mentioned that, if we're comparing a 1080 and a run rocket, well, it's like apples to oranges. Like, yes, it's both resisted running and the 1080 can do assisted as well, but they're two completely different holes.
Yeah.
And the more you train, like you don't know what holes are there until you train, then you change your methodology, and then a new hole pops up, and then that's kind of just this scientific method of kind of just going and stuff shows up.
And half the stuff, it doesn't work the way I thought it would, and it turned into something else. It's kind of like the B-29 Superfortress in World War II. They thought it'd be this high altitude bomber that would be really successful, and it wasn't. So what did they learn how to do? They flew those suckers in low, and it worked really well. So again, they spent a fortune on the plane. I think it was the most output of a weapon next to the atomic bomb, and it
Wow.
didn't work the way they thought it would. And so they just said, well, what can it do? It flies low and bombs the crap out of stuff. All right, here we go.
A little history nugget.
Little history.
Today I
I throw
learned.
those in. I throw that in once in a while. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really my job. I mean,
I
that's
mean,
my
it's not like you're a history teacher or anything,
yeah.
You're a speed coach with a history problem.
Could
Um,
be. Could be.
so last thing on that topic. So I don't know if this is just my scientific kind of box mindset, but like, is it running stats on like pre-post for your sprinting, outputs, or is it just your coach's eye, your athlete's feedback on like making that decision of I'm keeping it or I'm tossing it?
If it's a piece of equipment, it's usually all the above. I'll track for a while, and I'm not patient. I don't go 6 to 8 weeks. I'm horrible at that. I'll give it a couple weeks, and if I'm not seeing it, um, I won't use it. I'll change it. Or you saw me coach. I asked my kids almost after every rep that,
Yeah.
how did that feel? What did you feel? There's a constant dialogue about what's going on with them when they're doing stuff. Um, so it's numbers. Ultimately, it's going to be what you run in your fly or your block time. If I'm seeing changes, and again, I'm not a perfect scientist. Doing these research papers, I learned how difficult it is to be patient. I'm not patient at all. I'll change something in a heartbeat. Well, you probably saw that when you watched this workout that I
Yeah.
I changed stuff really quick multiple times. Um, I guess I'm looking for that instant change. Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I don't. And then I got to do something different. I guess that's what makes training exciting for me is, always looking for that combination or the right recipe to really hit for someone. And that's a lot of fun, where all of a sudden you're going to see this big drop in a fly 10 from one week to the next when you hit it just right, or a big jump, a 2-inch jump and a vertical jump in between sets just because you hit something right. And so it's like this never-ending puzzle. The puzzle changes every time, and it just keeps my mind interested instead of bored. Because once I get bored, I'm not a very good person.
Interesting. Very cool. So let's get into it. What is the coolest story you have thus far in your career?
See, that's a really hard question because, as we talked about pre-recording this, is it a team thing or is it like a personal thing? So I think I'm going to go with a team thing, just because I think this showed the whole picture of what happens. Because I'm a mad scientist or whatever people call me. I coach too. Um, and it was 2008, 2009 at York High School. In 8, we got second. I had a really good relay team. I had really good sprinters. I had a kid get second in the 100, third in the 200. I think we got second in the 4x1. We DQ'd in the 4x2. We would have won the 4x2.
Oh man.
I mean, we were smoking and we DQ'd. So going into the next year, I had everyone but one kid back. The kid I lost was Nico Perino. By the way, I'm giving him a pub. He just came out with a really good documentary called Mighty Ira, which is about the director of the ACLU for 30 years. And he runs a really good podcast, so to speak. It's about First Amendment, freedom of speech on campuses. So Nico left me, and Nico was great because he was literally a coach. He was the kid that you always wanted, that was a coach when you weren't there, and he got everything set up. Now someone's going to replace him. Jimmy Sullivan will replace him, but Jimmy had a bump. So context: we're going into that next year. I've got almost everyone back. We're going to rock it. We're looking at shattering all the state records, the whole thing. and we hit a couple bumps. First bump is Jimmy Sullivan, all-state long jumper, sprinter, all that junior year, looking for a big senior year, blows his ACL playing basketball. Boom. Oops. So I think I'm down one kid, and my new coach, my new right-hand man is gone. And just to show you where there's a will, there's a way, they found a doctor in France who would do a radical new surgery that was illegal in the United States to repair his ACL. So they flew to France.
Some Kobe
Had to,
stuff right there.
had to pay cash. And Jimmy walked out of the hospital.
Wow.
So I know when people come and they do assessments, I like to do that hip hike exercise with the ball. I think it's on YouTube. I think Tony Holler's done some stuff with it. Jimmy literally did probably did 1,000 of those a night to get his hip and knee, everything to talk together again. That was with the help of Sean Allen, who's at Cairo, and the Gate guys. He owns the Gate guys. So I get Jimmy back miraculously. Somehow he comes back.
How many months was that?
Oh God. Well, he blew his ACL in the summer, like July, and he was there for the first meet.
Wow. Was that February, March?
Yeah.
Dang.
Early, mid-February. So then I have this other kid, John Fox, so somehow I have a kid that's got the will to come fighting back because he's not going to miss this whole thing. And then John Fox, who's the kid that got second 100, ran a blazing 55 at the conference meet. FAT, I think it was 6:15 or something. It was the fastest time in the country. And then he blew his AC. He pulled his hamstring doing 4x1 exchanges before our first meet. I think people who know RPR know that story. And I did everything I could to get him back. And eventually he'll run in the state meet in the relay. But the other part of the story that nobody knows about is the other kids that stepped up to fill his hole. And so again, whatever culture we built there was this idea that we were this team, which is hard in track because it's such an individual sport. And I had a kid named Kahara Williams, who's a good sprinter. And all of a sudden, he used to sing our national anthem and then go triple jump. I mean, he was a theater kid, tall, skinny. And all of a sudden he decided that it was his job to fill that hole, and he changed his personality. I mean, he even went to meets and acted like this really tough guy, and he became like the muscle on the team. He used to practice being mean. He'd say scrambled eggs, and he'd say it in like a mean voice, and that would get him in that position. And then he gave himself like a mohawk. And he ended up being fourth in the state in the 100, and I think he was fifth in the 200. But without John Fox getting hurt, I don't know if he would have ever had that change. But again, people that stepped up, and another kid, Tarrance Williams, who's really quiet. You may have seen him because he used to be a model for East Bay, but out of the blue steps up and becomes this beast. And all of a sudden we end up second at nationals in the 4x2. So what looked like, and we won the state championship that year, and we ran fast times, even though John was hurt. And he'll never break 11 again after he pulls his hamstring. But to me, it showed the character and determination of what those kids did, or whether it was the culture that we built at York. But to me, that showed it showed everything that you want in a team. So whether you might have cool training and cool equipment, and you've got a mad scientist coach, and you're doing all this stuff, none of that matters without the character that you build. And that, to me, that was the coolest story of my career, that it all came together. And it wasn't because I do cool training or I have crazy exercises and I have different practices than everyone else. It was more of a character development thing, something that we had built at York. And I'm not taking all the credit for it. I mean, Stan Rettle was the head coach. And to me, Stan Rettle was overshadowed by Joe Newton. And they worked together, and they worked together great. But Stan Reynolds, the best high school coach I've ever seen. Just amazing. So that's the coolest story of my career, that even though I'm supposed to be a mad scientist and we do crazy workouts and equipment and all that other stuff, we built other things too. Other things happened. And when it hit the fan, you could see that what you built actually happened. Maybe it's because we did run fly 10s and that's all we did on a Monday workout. I don't know. We don't know. But basically the end story was it all came to. And even to this day, I'm still haunted by John Fox's hamstring injury and all that. And then, of course, I'm going to have another phenomenal sprinter with Marshall Ellis. And then we got COVID, and God knows what's going to happen with the track season this year. So I'm just missing, I'm running out of time here as I'm missing these opportunities to leave a mark.
That's really cool. I like how you mentioned right at the end where it's like we can have all of this fancy training, we can have all of this, but when your back's up against the wall, if you don't have, the right kids, the right culture, all of those things that you can't quantify, which, I would love to quantify that stuff.
Sure.
But the stuff you can't quantify and you can't teach, you can just try to like nurture and foster and, all of these things that are abstract, that you just get by going and doing experiences. So I think that that's a super cool story. So I guess questions off of that is, when did you know that team/season, was it like right at the beginning there was like a buzz, or was it kind of like,
the buzz was right after the state meet in 8.
Oh, so it was like before that.
Oh, everyone knew. Everyone in the state knew.
Okay. So it was recent, or sorry,
Yeah.
It was early.
Yeah.
And then second, so mentioning kind of this culture and all of this stuff as a coach, were you doing like team building stuff? Did you have captains? Were you talking to them about leadership? Was it a little bit more organic, or did you kind of step in as a coach whenever you saw fit, or was it kind of just kind of step back and let the kids
I think there was a myth. I think you lead kids there and you say things to them that gives them the option to do A or go to B. And hopefully you have them take A, but if they take B, then that's not the kid that's going to make that change. So I think there were some challenges for people to step up, and it wasn't like, who's going to be the next man up here that's going to step up and fill that hole. But I think it became obvious. I mean, to watch John Fox hobble around, but still try and run, which was so stupid that I let him do that, try to run every week and all this stuff. So I think, and then kids get it. They know what the culture is, and eventually it becomes someone's going to step up. And I think the way we phrased it was, sometime you've got to put a name on your back. What are you going to do to put the name on your back? And who's going to do that? And that was one of the magic things Stan Reynolds did is, for me, coaching with Stan for 10 years, the magic was we had a team meeting, and sometimes team meetings would be 40 minutes, but he would talk about all this stuff on a daily basis. He would define what these things mean. And I think a lot of coaches get pissed because their kids don't have X, but have you ever defined X? Have you ever given them examples? And that was something that there was always examples at York High School where even workouts, we would record every workout. And then one thing that would bring kids along was the idea that, hey, this dude X, who is Dan Palmer, state champion, 47-second, 400 meter, 21 something, 200 meter, this is what he ran in this workout, at the same time. You're right there with them. And so there's this constant idea that you aren't normal, that you're just as good as the kids that were state champions. And that went around everywhere. I mean, that was a constant conversation with kids, all kids, even the kids that weren't very fast. You pitted out that, hey, here's the difference. Like when we did our 23-second runs, here's where person X made. Look at how close you are to person X. What can you do to make that closer, to cut that distance down? And that's one thing I did this year at home at Flossmoor with our 23-second runs. And this is because at Montini, we didn't do 23-second runs because we ran in a hallway and the weather's been, so we barely got to be out on a track. I went out and I marked out all the really fast people that I've trained where they make it to 23 seconds. And I made a banner, stuck it into a cone, stuck it up in the air. This is what this kid's time was at the state meet. This is where he made it on this day. Where are you? You talk all this talk. Where are you? And then you know. And then you have a real easy conversation with someone like, hey, if you want to be that guy, what are you going to do? What part of this race do you need work on? You tell me what you feel, and then I can make a workout to make sure that we get there. And so all of a sudden you have this joint journey with your athlete. And does that mean I have kids that do different workouts? It does. Does that make it a pain in the butt? No, because if the kid really wants to do it, they don't need the coach to stand there and scream and yell at them. And if they're not that self-driven person, well, then maybe that's not a person on your 4x1.
What I really like about that, tying this into data, because that's where my mind's at, is like when you have all of that data and that becomes part of the focal points of conversation where you can do this. Like I have the evidence, the proof right here that you're super close. And when you know you're being timed, when you know that you're somewhat being compared to your peers, in the past, and also you could be used as examples in the future. So then there's this like belief that's being built, and then there's this like consistent effort and like always wanting to run your best. So then when it comes time to lock in the blocks, well, you've already been doing that day in and day out for however many months.
Yeah.
When it's your time to put the name on your back, you've basically been preparing for it, physically and mentally. So super cool story on how kind of you use data with some of those unquantifiable things, like
Well,
their culture and stuff.
I think once you make it tangible and they can see the distance, it doesn't look that far, and anyone can make that. I mean, if you talk to the great adventurers, like the guy that walked across the North Pole, and how did you do that, dude? Well, I forgot his name. That's why I called him dude. He deserves more than a dude. He goes, I'm out of food. I'm tired. I'm worried about polar bears. I'm just looking iceberg to iceberg, and that's where I'm working for. It's the same thing when you run track. Here's my mark. Hey, this time here's my next mark, and that's where I'm going to shoot for. And then you put a flag down. One year at York, we had all the kids get their own marker. Now it got crazy because some dude brought a tuba, and everyone had a funny joke. And so we had to end that, but still it's a personal marker for you that this is what I'm going to get to today. And that's something you don't do in track because everyone's like, well, 8/200s at 23 second, whatever your paces are, or, whatever. Now you've got a tangible mark to know where you're at. And I think that's only fair to your athlete to let them know truly where they're at. Not everyone's going to be a 10-5 guy. Here's the proof. Now here's what you can do to get there. Hopefully it happens. But you got to do something on your end too.
That's awesome. I love that. So moving on, what is the story most fundamental leading you to now?
Well, it's not a nice story, but so I'm at Hinsdale Central. I'm a second year teacher. The head football coach and AD calls me into his office and says, I want you to coach track. You're going to be the sprint coach, and we're going to bring in a new head coach. And that's what you're going to do. And I was like, wow. I don't know anything about track. I ran track my freshman year in high school on a cinder track, and I was a high hurdler, and I spent more time pulling cinders out of my body, and I quit. And unfortunately, I had a really nice coach. He was a distant coach, and at Larkin High School, we only had one coach. And so he kind of middle of the road, everyone's going to do kind of the same workout, so he could watch everyone. And I regret not running all 4 years now, looking back at my life. But so I get this job, and the old coach, I won't say his name, but he's a friend of mine. He'll become a friend of mine. He told me I'll never be any good. And so that was kind of like, someone threw a gauntlet down. That became my drive, is someone told me I won't be any good. And maybe he was right. I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything. So that became my driver. So the first time We won a championship in conference for an event because Hinsdale Central was literally the worst. I mean, we'd score no points at a conference meet. West Suburban Silver is a tough track conference. Probably one of the best conferences in the history of state. I mean, everyone, York, Oak Park, Downers, LT, Glenbard West, Proviso West, big hitters, big schools. And so when I won my first conference championship in a 4x2, that was kind of like a big middle finger to this person. And it just fueled the fire to continue on that. Like it became a personal vendetta. Yeah, so that would probably be, and I've never gotten rid of that drive. And I just pick different targets. Usually I wear a watch. All my watches broke over COVID. I don't know why. But I wear a cloth band, whatever color that cloth band is. If it's your school, I'm hunting you. I'm coming for you. That's my daily reminder that I'm coming for you. And every time I look at that watch, what have I done to beat this person?
Wow, very intense, very intense. Interesting kind of reminder.
Yeah. And when I don't have any, because the track at the state meet is blue, kids, that blue track. It changed when I was at York because everyone hated us at York. And people truly wished ill on us and wished, ill on me. And so you kind of got past that personal vendetta thing because everyone hated you. People were happy when things didn't go your way. When they saw your kid go down, they were happy. People that come up and tell you that after your 4x1 or your 4x2 or one of your kids gets beat by someone, you'll have coaches come up to me and tell me, I've waited my whole career to beat you. Stuff like that. When I was at York, I realized that I just had to focus on my team. I stopped looking at top times. I stopped looking at other people's times, and I really focused on my own team. But that doesn't mean some people don't piss me off still.
It's an interesting kind of situation like that where it's called the negativity frenzy. So you're raising the bar, you're thinking outside the box, you're showing these people that it does take a lot of time and a lot of money also. And there's this huge coaching component of you have to have this mad scientist, plus you have to actually coach and you have to do all this stuff, and it makes them uncomfortable. So instead of saying like, oh gosh, like I got to fork up some money, some time, a lot of mental effort, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna talk bad about him, and it's an interesting situation having a target on your back like that. But kind of playing their game and just like clock in, clock out, like I'm sure that would have felt even worse.
Yeah, it is. You know what? The way I think of it is there's people that hate the Beatles. So haters going to hate. I've never been mean to anyone. I've always been nice and generous to everyone that I've met, but still doesn't mean I'm not coming for you.
And the times will settle all for
That's right.
sure. So when
I,
the gun
I've
goes
never backed
off,
down. I'll always put my four on the track with anyone. And I've been to 4 high schools to prove it.
when the gun goes off, just wait till that finish line is crossed, and then we'll see who's talking for sure.
Yeah.
So last question on that: how many watch bands do you have?
You really want to see?
Sure.
They're in my
That,
closet behind me.
that was just like the one thing that came to my mind was like, well, if he has all these different colors and like
I have a lot.
he was very intentional about it. Surprise! If you had to just a
All right,
number.
hang on.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
The rest of them are in a bag because I also use them to carry, hold my cameras. I also use them to hold the cameras and microphones at TFC, so they're all attached to my cameras right now. But I'll go out of my way to buy whatever color I need.
So the secret sauce isn't all the training; it's just having really cool watch bands to motivate you to smoke everyone.
Yeah, that is it.
The
It's the
secret,
little things. And
secret comes out.
in the way it started, the first time when I was at Hinsdale Central, it always been my goal to beat York because York had won consecutive conference championships. A long string, 30 years. and I wanted to beat them. And the first night that we beat York, I found a green watch on the floor it was at York. It was the first year they opened their field house, and I found a green watch. I've got the green watch. It's broken, but I still keep it. And that's what I wore for the rest of my career at Hinsdale Central. It's an ugly
Wow.
green watch that has a B on it. The B for the minute hand. It's like a little girl's watch, but still, it was green. It reminded me about York
That's
year
awesome.
round.
That's awesome. Very cool story. So last big one. What is the story you're most proud of thus far?
I'm not a prideful person. I'm really not proud of, because for me, pride means that you've stopped. And I guess I don't ever stop to think and reflect. Like after we've won state championships or we've gotten trophies at state meets, it's great. You get the trophy. And then the minute I get in the car, the first thing that I think about when I get in the car is, first of all, I got to get a lemon shake up. But then, uh, what am I doing now? Like I got to start getting ready for next year. So really, I don't really have time to reflect on what some people call successes. I spend a lot more time dwelling on failures. I'm constantly looking for holes. I'm probably the hardest person on me. People can say whatever they want about me, but I'm much harder on myself than people can be on me. Um, but I will say this: there was a really good story. Kind of goes along with the first one. And this is back when I was at Hinsdale Central, and this was my first really good track team. Um, this is a team that beat York and all that. And this is when I had football players and track runners. And my football team was my track team. It was just a year-long thing, which is ultimately what I would like to do again. And hopefully I get a chance at home in Flossmoor to do that. But we had a kid who was autistic back then. It was in the 90s, so they really didn't know what to call it back then. But he ran track and he idolized these guys, the football players, and they were all really good to him. And it was at an indoor track meet. And I'll never forget that his greatest joy in life would have been to run a relay with three of those guys. Now, all four of them went on to play Division I football. One of them played at Auburn, one of them played at Iowa, one of them played at Miami, Ohio, one of them played at James Madison. And so we decided that we were going to let him run on a relay in a 4x1 at a good meet, at a good meet. And so what three of the guys did is they went out and ran blistering 400s. I mean, personal best 400s, just so this kid could get the stick and have an opportunity to win. And they did. They got him a huge lead, and he was no slouch. I mean, he was like a 55-second quarter mile kid, 56-second quarter mile kid. And he won just at the line, and everyone just erupted. And they picked him up and carried him around. And I thought, wow, I made one decision, and these guys came through for me, and we gave someone a memory that will be the crowning moment of their life. And what a cool feeling that was. And so that, to me, that was something cool. Again, kids step up, and you know what? And if you make the culture right, kids will always step up. If you've set it up, they will step up. That's what they want to do. They don't want to fail. If they're out for sports, they're not there to fail. I mean, maybe one kid out of a bunch, but mostly. So if you set the pins right, you frame it right, whatever you want to call it, and you have a good program, they're going to step up.
Not to go down this huge rabbit hole, but culture, buzzword or whatever, it's important, as multiple of your stories have reflected. So if it's possible to briefly / concisely summarize this, what are some of your main beliefs, action steps that you do to help foster culture that would promote actions kind of like that?
I don't give a lot of compliments. I'm not good job every time, good job, good job, good job. And when kids work with you long enough, they want praise. They know if they do something special, they'll get it, and they'll work for that. Um, Someone gave Bill Belichick, not that I'm comparing myself to Bill Belichick, but that he was hard on Tom Brady. I remember last year the media was Belichick went off on Tom Brady in a meeting. Well, that was one of Joe Newton's big things is what do you call it? You kick your stallions and stroke your mules. Um, and again, you're building a better team that way because you're bringing that bottom up and you're letting the top guys know that what you're doing is you can do better. You know, I'm only going to give up on an athlete long after they've given up on themselves. And you've got to stay with them. And just because a kid is a stud or he's run this time or he's that guy or he's signed here doesn't mean it's time to let up on that kid. Your job is to get him to that potential. And I think once you have the shared journey with your athletes and they understand that, it goes a long way. I'm not a rah-rah guy. Um, Pretty quiet. I let my exercises and my drills do the talking for me. And I think once kids feel things, because athletes are much better at feeling than listening, they learn much faster. And then when you start to get that success and they see that you're truly in it for them and you give them specific things to do, that just builds the whole. It builds it so much stronger. Um, so I don't have like boards and sayings and things like that. It's more of a body language type thing that I think really goes a long way. And I think if you know anything about athletes, you know that uh, they're much better at reading body languages than they are about listening to words and all that other stuff. And they want to feel things. They want to feel things. And I think, when you have constant improvements in what you're doing and you're winning, that just keeps fueling the fire that, we're on the right track. And there's no doubt. I think it's an easier way to get everyone going in the same direction where you don't have people, talking about behind your back, like the parents go home and say, well, you should be doing this, you know, and I get that sometimes. I have a parent that says, you guys need to be doing this. Really? How long have you coached track for?
You want dad.
Yeah, it's like you watched a Jason Bourne movie, and all of a sudden you're an expert on MMA. It's so I think those are things that happen to build culture. For me, I've been lucky at York. I learned a lot from Stan Rettle and Joe Newton about what they do. And it's the little things. It's not the big major things. And I know Steve Jones at Kimberly High School, who's phenomenal at building culture. And we do it differently. He does a lot of talks and things like that. And I'm more of a body language person. Um, in fact, when people come watch me coach, they're surprised that I don't say much. And I said, I don't need to say much. The drills are designed to do the talking for me and give them the cues that they need, that I can feel that's a fail and I feel this is a win. That way they know. I don't have to tell them. The last thing I want to do is tell my kid, you failed, that sucked. I let the exercise do that. And then when they feel it and they overcome it, I say, yeah, way to go.
That's one of my new kind of favorite coaching things to do is those drills where either you figure it out and you do the drill successfully or you don't,
Yeah.
and then if you don't, it's like, what do you think went wrong? And then it's more of this like feedback process as opposed to like, that was good, that was bad, or like anyone can, run 10 meters, but can you make it through hurdle space at like 6 feet, 20 hurdles? Where it's
Yeah.
like, you're either going to make it through or you're not. Then we're going to figure out how to get it better. And
Yeah.
if you crush it, you're like, you have to crush it to make it through. So those drills where it's like a sink or swim drill for sure. I've definitely become a fan of those.
If you crush it, I haven't done my job.
True. Got to keep that in mind also.
I had a girl, her name is McKenna Robinson. She runs at Texas now. Um, she was my biggest challenge. She was perfect. I couldn't get her to fail.
Really?
I tried everything. I tried so many different things. Water bag on top of, mat, stuff like that. She would not fail. She was a machine.
That's
Machine.
awesome. Bet she kept you up at night.
She did.
Just trying to figure out, just like, how do you keep crushing all this stuff?
Yeah. And you know what? She was a feisty one. And
She
she
probably loved the
knew,
challenge.
oh, she just give me a look like, yeah, what do you got now? You got nothing. You got nothing. So, yeah, she's at Texas now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's wrap this up. We'll be right about an hour, a little under. So here on TSP, I love the theoretical, the stories, and kind of all this stuff. But we are what we do, and the actions. Anyone can say anything. So with all of your wisdom and insight and mad scientist isms and stuff like that, what are 1 to 3 actionable steps that the listener can start doing tomorrow to become better?
All right. So I wrote these down.
Awesome.
Like I told you before, I normally don't write things down for podcasts, and I wrote stuff down for you. Number one, should I start more tangible to abstract or abstract to tangible?
Let's go tangible to abstract. Give him a softball first. Just toss it
All
up.
right. So write down your ideas. Where's my pencils here? So you got to write stuff down. And so here's what I do. I live on note cards. I'm sure you went to the basement. You saw these note cards all over the place. You got to write your ideas down. Otherwise they go away, especially when you get old like me, they really go away. And so I have a color code. Pencils are for your ideas. What blue pencils are for what you're going to do for actions to make that happen, and then red is questions that you have about that idea. So create a color code thing for your notes. You may not like note cards. Note cards are perfect for me. My life changed dramatically when I went from paper size stuff to note cards because my brain can't handle that much. I'm really good at handling that much information on one card. So I have these cards all over the place. I even color code my note cards so I know, is this RPR stuff? Is this training stuff? Is this for TFC? So I know exactly what that is. And I know that sounds weird, but any idea that you have, write it down. Don't do the I'm going to record into my phone thing, because once you write ideas down, it gets your brain moving. If you just talk it into your phone or type it into your phone, it's not quite the same thing. And there's research to back that up. And so that's kind of how I get into this mad scientist thing. And I wouldn't call myself a mad scientist. I would call myself more of improv. Because really, I just say, this is a good idea. And now what am I going to do to make it better? So it's a yes and mindset. Most people say, yeah, but once you say, yeah, but you're done. You're done learning. You're not going to go any further than that. But becomes the barrier. And I don't need barriers. This job is hard enough. I mean, we're taking the most complex skill that the human knows and trying to figure out how it works. And we still can't. Nobody has a clue. How can we make everyone run as fast as Usain Bolt? We can't. Nobody has an idea. They can't even make robots that do that. We can't even manufacture it. So the only way you're going to get anywhere is to have a yes and attitude, where you've got an idea and you go, yeah, and we can do this. And that's why Cal and I get along so well, is we both have a yes and mindset. When we go to dinner together, and COVID was great because Cal and I got together a lot. We go out to dinner, and when we leave, the entire tablecloth has got writing all over it because we're just writing down ideas, and we yes and each other back and forth all the time. So what could be funny at Second City or something like that is really just these training ideas that we come up with and we build on. And that's really how we come up with all these different ideas. Is that's the mindset that we have. Once you say but, you're done. And I don't deal well when people tell me but. It's like Dave, I said his name. That guy tells me that I'm not going to be any good. That it's not going to happen. There's always a drill that can be made better. There's always a workout that can be made better. There's always something that you can do as a coach to make the whole situation better. And it's one thing that the improv mentality can get you. And then the last thing is kind of go along with this. The same idea is experiment, try new stuff. and learn from it. And it's really your failures that's going to give you your ideas about what can be better. Yeah, I've made some good exercise. I've done some cool stuff. But really, the stuff that doesn't work is really more important to me because I know there's an element of a good idea there. And maybe I need to talk to someone about it. I'm not really very good about, I'm good at talking to Cal and Dan Fichter about stuff. That's about it. Just because we all kind of have the same mindset. Dan's the no guy, where he'll ask good questions about why it's going to happen, and then Cal will call him a name or something like that. Usually calls people, but I can't say what he says. It's not politically correct. But yeah, learn from your failures. Always ask why didn't it work and what can be done better. Why, dig deep into your failures. And that's really, you're going to make all your growth. People hate me. They don't hate me as a teacher, but they get frustrated because I have hard tests. And I said, the tests are there for you to fail. I can curve it to be whatever I want, but I need you to learn why your notes don't work, what you're doing isn't working, so you get to be a better student. Same thing with our workouts is, I'm kind of off topic here, but you're going to fail in our workouts. Something's not going to go right, and you've got to learn to deal with that. But just like that, for as a coach, I'm going to watch a workout. If it didn't go well, is it really back to your original question, is it really a bad idea, or is there some gold in here to figure it out? So yeah, I guess look for your gold. It's always not sitting at the top. You got to dig a little bit, and there's something in there. But I think those three things have really helped me grow as a coach and continue to grow. I know I've been doing this for really 30 years, but I don't feel like it. And I feel like I've got a lot to learn. I've got a long way to go to be where I want to be.
I will try to do all that justice by summing it up. So it's this experiment mindset, this yes and mindset about how can I do all of these ideas once you have them all written down and color coded and all of that stuff. But then like one thing I've totally subscribed to is like everything is the scientific method. You have your hypothesis idea, you have your methods, you collect data, and then you conclude and you go back to the top. And it's being open to have all of these crazy hypotheses, right? It's being open to ask your athletes to do something. Well, you should have a good why, but being open to having a drill that's just like like that wasn't what I thought it would be, or buying a piece of equipment, you're like, oh gosh, like that didn't really pan out, but you got the answer you wanted, and then it's like, well, this didn't work, and what can I do next, or how else can I use this piece of equipment? And it's super simple to get caught up in this whole like I mean, I asked you about your consulting and stuff, and then you mentioned your age, which we'll call it 30, and you're like, how old are you? I'm like 24. He's like, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive, and it's just like this, like, I mean, myself,
I've just been slugging. I've been swinging away longer than most people, and I never give up. And that's eventually, I guess, something went my way because I'd never quit. And and there's still things probably not right for me to say, but I'm not even close to reaching the goals that I've set for myself. I'm a long way from them, and I'm still working toward them.
And no one's ever going to get to those goals if every ideas fall with a but. Why can't it happen? All these obstacles. Well, make it happen. Put a name on your back. Yeah,
I think my mom instilled that in us. She would tell us, things don't go your way, and she would say, probably her most famous line, because my mom liked to give us a hard time. It didn't work out this way. And she'd say, well, you know what they say in Poland, don't you? And tough ski, shit ski.
And I think that is an awesome place to end it. So I will now open the floor up to you. Any plugs with all of your crazy side ventures going on? Where can people get more of you?
My website sucks. It's Slow Guy Speed School. I haven't updated it in a really long time. We have a really good TFC coming. It's online. We're calling it 20 nights, 20 coaches. you register, you get 20 not podcasts, but 20 presentations by the coaches that they do. They'll record on their own computer. And then every night in December, except for like Friday nights or something, you get to be on a Zoom with that coach. You can ask them questions about their presentation. And then every coach is going to have 20 questions that are preset. Like, what's one thing that makes you different than other coaches? What are your 5 go-to exercises? What are your 5 go-to workouts? What are the 5 things that you would change to make a perfect workout? So we've got these 20 questions that I think everyone wants to hear from these people, some really good people. It was really cool because normally I have to pay for people to come a really long distance. So now I could get people. We have someone from every continent except for Africa. No, we
Wow.
got someone from South Africa.
Wow.
Nobody from South America. No South American.
That is awesome.
So we've got really good people. Track Football Consortium, and I think, for the money, I think it's $175. You get 20 presentations. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's like one ticket to one conference, and you can see, 4 or 5 guys.
And I know everything. My presentation, which I finished today, most of it's stuff I've never shared with anyone. I know Cal Dietz's stuff is all new stuff that he worked on over COVID. He and I worked a lot over COVID. COVID's not over yet. What am I saying?
Yeah.
The lockdowns. Well, now we're locked down again. So,
More ideas.
but we've got some really good people doing some really good stuff. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for that because I think it will set the bar higher for all of the different conferences that are people having online.
Awesome. So if you send me all those links, they'll be in the show notes. And yeah, this was awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
No
Looking
problem.
forward to the next chat for sure.
Yeah.